Okay, this is me going over your study guide. Make sure the vocabulary that's listed at the top that you are familiar with those. Remember, all of your questions are multiple choice, but you do need to be familiar with those. The first section, addition, subtraction, this is all with whole numbers. So again, just making sure with addition that you line up. That would be 11. So 318 for the first one. 693 minus 99. We've got to regroup here. So that should give us 594. The dot again, remember, as we move into algebra later in the year, we want to remember that the dot also represents multiplication. So 872 times 43. That will give us 6, 21, 24. That'll be 26. Do not forget to put your placeholder when you're doing multiple digit multiplication. So 4 times 2 would give us 8. That's 28. And again, that would be 32 plus 2, 34. And adding these together, that would be 37,496. And the last question in this section is division. 255 divided by 5. 5 will go into 25 5 times. Nothing left over. Bring down a number. 5 goes into 5 one time. And we have no remainder. Sorry, that got a little messy. Okay. Huge thing to remember, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division with decimals. For addition and subtraction, you have got to line up your decimals. Multiplying and dividing, we don't. But don't forget, for adding and subtracting, your decimals have to be lined up. We should be able to draw a circle and circle our decimals in a straight line. So for this one, that would give us 1, 9, 13. Should have 43 and 91 hundredths. 43.91. Okay, same thing here, 97 and 2 hundredths minus 33. This is a whole number. Any decimal on a whole number is at the end. So make sure you add that behind there. Should have 64 and 2 hundredths. Okay, multiplying. We don't need to worry about lining up our decimals. We actually don't even need our decimals until we're finished. So 5 times 3, that gives us 15. That would be 6 and 10. 4 times 3 is 12. That will be 5 and 8. Add those two together. Don't forget your placeholder on the second row. Okay, at this point we have 1, 2, 3 decimal places, so we'll have 1, 2, 3 in our answer. So however many places, if I have 1 here and 2 here, that means in my answer I'm going to have a total of 3. Always start at the back and move forward 3 places. Okay? So 4 and 55 hundredths minus 5 hundredths. If we move our decimal place 2 places here, we have to move it 2 places in our dividend. Once you've moved it, go ahead and bring it up to your top line so it's there for your quotient. So 5 goes into 45 9 times. We have nothing left over. Bring down a 5. 5 will go into 5 one time. And again, nothing left over. Okay? Alright, simplifying fractions. Remember, this is where you're using your GCF, your greatest common factor. Once you find the greatest common factor of these two numbers, you'll divide them both by that number. The GCF of 12 and 32 would be 4. That will be the largest number that can go into both 12 and 32. So 12 divided by 4 would give us 3, and 32 divided by 4 would give us 8, and 3/8 would be simplified. Okay? If we have, remember we called these messy fractions, it's a mixed number, but it's also improper. So we want to change this improper fraction into a mixed number. So 39 divided by 15, that would be 2. We have 9 left over out of 15. If I add this to what's already there, that would give me 14 and 9 over 15. I can simplify 9 over 15, divide both by 3, and that would give us 14 and 3/15. fifths. Sorry, that got a little crammed in there. But 14 3/5 would be your final answer for number 10. Okay, your greatest common factor on number 11 would be 5. So divide both numerator and denominator by 5, and that would give you 5 over 11. And remember, anytime your denominator is a prime number, that's simplified. All right, again, improper fraction, we're going to look at it like division. 8 goes into 34 4 times, and that would give us 2 left over out of 8, and we can simplify that to 4 1/4 by dividing both of those by 2. Remember, guys, I know I may be going a little fast, but you have the ability to pause this, look at my work, go back and check yours. Double check if you have any questions or anything. You know you can always send me a message on Remind. All right, 9 and 21 over 56. It is a mixed number, but this number is not improper. Our greatest common factor between 21 and 56 would be 7. So again, we're going to keep our whole number the same. 21 divided by 7 would be 3, and 56 divided by 7 would be 8. Okay, for 14, we don't have a greatest common factor other than 1. So 21 over 40 would stay the same, cannot be simplified. Okay, again, we have another improper fraction. So that would be 42 divided by 7, which, sorry, that's not 71. That would give us 6, nothing left over. So your answer is just a whole number 6. Okay, again, changing this messy fraction, we've got 16 divided by 3. That would go 5 times with 1 left over out of 3. Add that to what's already there, so that would give us 87 1/3. Okay, decimals to fractions. Again, remember, this is what you write what you say. Okay, so if we read this aloud, this says 4/10. I'm going to write it as 4/10. And then, of course, we can simplify by dividing by 2, because they're both even numbers, to 2/5. If I see the same thing, this is 1 and 4/10. 1 and 4/10. We just did this one, so we know that would be 1 and 2/5. Okay, this would be 4 and 45 hundredths. Again, they both end in 5 and 0, so we can divide both numbers by 5. So that would give us 4 and 9 over 20. And that's because 45 divided by 5 would give us 9, and 100 divided by 5 would give us 20. Okay, this number would read as 8 hundredths. 4 would be our greatest common factor on both of these, so we would divide both by 4, and that would give us 2 over 25. Okay, this is a tough one. We've got 17 and 385 thousandths. We're going to leave our whole number the same. Let's see, 5 can go into both because they end in 5 and 0. That would make this number 200, and that would make this number, let's see, 77. Yes, because if I did 385 divided by 5, 5 will go into 38. 7 times gives me 3 left over. Bring down my 5, so that would be 77 over 200. That is a tough one, but again, if they end in 5 and 0, you know you can divide both numbers by 5. Okay, number 22. This is 42 hundredths. They're both even. If I divide 42 by 2, I'm going to get 21. And if I divide 100 by 2, I get 50. And they don't have a greatest common factor greater than 1. Okay, 9 and 17 hundredths. 17 is a prime number, so unless your denominator was a multiple of 17, we can't simplify that one. And then number 24, this will be 3/10, and the same thing, 3 is prime, and our denominator would have to be a multiple of that. Okay, again, pause anytime you need to go back and check your work. make sure we are taking this up at the beginning of class tomorrow. Okay, so fractions to decimals. This is where we are going to divide. And this is always numerator divided by denominator. Your numerator will always be inside the house. Okay? So if we look at this, this is going to be 1 divided by 9. I have to add a decimal and zeros. 9 will go into 10 one time. We have 1 left over. We bring a 0 down. At this point, we should realize that we have a repeating decimal, so we put a line over it. Okay, keep our whole number the same. 3 divided by 5. 5 can go into 36 times. We have nothing left over, so I would add that to my whole number and get 1 6/10. Which, remember, if we were to change this to an unsimplified fraction, that would be 6/10. Okay, number 27, we have 5 divided by 8. Again, decimal and zeros. 8 will go into 50 6 times. That will give me 48. I have 2 left over. Bring a 0 down. 8 will go into 22 times. That's 16. Have 4 left over. Bring a 0 down. 8 goes into 45 times. And at this point, we would have nothing left over. So that would be 625 thousandths. Okay, again, leave my whole number. Now I have 17 divided by 6. It is an improper fraction, so I'm going to get a whole number and a fraction. 6 will go into 17 2 times. Have 5 left over. Bring my 0 down. 6 goes into 50 8 times. Have 2 left over. Bring a 0 down. 6 goes into 23 times. That's 18. And the 3's will be repeating. Now, we have 2 and 833 thousandths. We need to add that to the 12 we already have. So that would give us 14 and 83. Let's just stop right there. We don't have to add the extra 3 because we're putting the repeating sign over that 3. Okay? Let's flip to the back. Now we are doing addition and subtraction with like and unlike denominators. Remember, if my denominators are not the same, I have to find my greatest common multiple. I'm sorry, I just said that wrong. My least common multiple. Okay, my least common multiple between 3 and 4 would be 12. So that means my new denominators are going to be 12. If I did 3 times 4 to get 12, then 1 times 4 would be 4. If I did 4 times 3 to get 12, then 1 times 3 would be 3. Remember, whatever you do to the denominator, you have to multiply the numerator by the same thing. So add my whole numbers together. That would give us 7. 4 plus 3 is 7 over 12, and that cannot be simplified. Okay, again, my least common multiple between 8 and 16 is going to be 16. This fraction will stay the same because our denominator doesn't change. 8 times 2 gives me 16, so 2 times 2 would be 4, and that would give me 3 over 16. Okay, least common multiple of 7 and 11 would be 77. Those are my new denominators. 7 times 11 gives me 77, so 5 times 11 would be 55. 11 times 7 gives me 77, so 7 times 9 is 63. If I add these together, I end up with an improper fraction. So I'm now going to change that to a mixed number. This will go one time, have 41 left over out of 77, and that is it. Cannot be simplified. Okay. 3 and 6, my least common multiple is going to be 6. So this would be 9 and 1/6 minus, let's see, 6, 2 6. We're going to have to borrow. So remember, we're going to take one whole from this. That would make that 8. I have to add my numerator and denominator together because I made this into 6 over 6 for one whole. So that would be 8 and 7/6 minus 6 and 2/6, which would be 2 and 5/6. All right, greatest common factor. This is where we list all the ways we can multiply to get a number. So if we have 12, and remember this is where we do our factor trees. Okay, so we have 3 times 4 to get 12. 3 is prime, and we can't split it up anymore, but we can split up 4. Okay, and we also have 42. We could say 7 times 6, 7 is prime. This will give us 3 times 2. And now we're going to look and see which numbers they share. So we have a 3 here and a 3 here, a 2 here and a 2 here. So if we have 3 and 2 in both columns, my GCF, my greatest common factor, would be 6. Because I took both of these and multiplied them together. 12 and 42 can be divided by 6. Okay, so we have 50. This is going to be 25 times 2. Split those two apart. And we have 200. That's going to be 100 times 2. Let's see. Now, see what they have in common? We have a 5 here and a 5 here, 5 here and a 5 here, a 2 here and a 2 here. So what happened, all of my prime factors of 50 worked, and 200 can also be divided by 50. So your greatest common factor is 50. Make sure you understand these are your answers right here. Okay, looking at these numbers, if I look at 62, the only way I can multiply to get 62 is 2 times 31. 31 is prime. If I look at these, and I know 31 cannot go into either of these numbers, but I know that 2 it can, then I don't have to work any further. I knew my greatest common factor would only be 2. Okay? All right, looking at least common multiple. So I'm going to list my multiples of 5 and 7. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. I think I just saw one that they both share. Okay, so the smallest number that I get to on both 5 and 7 will be 35. So my least common multiple is 35. Okay, if I count by 12s and count by 9s, okay, the smallest number they both share is going to be 36. 13 and 5 kind of have a weird one. If I list my multiples of 13, because I know anything that's a multiple of 5 has to end in 5, so I'd have 13, 26, 39. That would give us 52 and then 65. This is the first number that ends in 5. I know it has to be a multiple of 5 because it ends in 5. So my least common multiple would be 65. It also happens to be what I get when I multiply 13 times 5. So I do know that it is a common multiple. Okay, looking at 9 and 4. 9. Okay, we also know that anything times 4, 9 times 4 is going to give us 36. And I don't have a multiple of 4 before I get there, so my least common multiple would be 36. Okay, last thing we need to go over is place value. Remember, anything to the left of the decimal, these are going to be whole numbers. Anything to the right is going to be a decimal. This would be our tenths, hundredths, thousandths, the THs. So looking at this place, is the first place to the left. This would be our ones place. The value there would be 2 because we have a 2 in the ones place. Looking at this, it's in the tenths, hundredths place. And a 6 in the hundredths place, the value would simply be 6 hundredths. Okay, 3 places to the left, this is our hundreds. And a 4 in the hundreds would be 400. And then the last one we have the tenths place. A 9 in the tenths would be 9/10. Okay, again, guys, your test tomorrow is 25 multiple choice questions. You have 4 questions that relate to vocab. You have 4 about place value, and then the others will be mixed up between the other type problems. So you guys are going to do awesome. Please let me know if you have any questions, and you're going to do great.